chat box, like type your name, your organizations, and where you are joining us from today. Buenos días, gracias por unirse hoy. Por favor, si quieren, pueden introducirse en la cajita, en el chat box, con su nombre, la organización desde la que se unen. I'm not sure, should we wait for a couple of minutes more? I think so, because I still don't see colleagues from our country projects. So I think probably we need to wait for a couple of minutes. We're going to start the session. So welcome everybody to this session. And please introduce yourself in the chat box with your name, organization, where you are joining us from today. We have an interpretation channel for Spanish and English. So please let us know if you can find it. If you have any problem, we are here to support you. And the presentation will be mostly in English, but we will be sharing some information also in Spanish. And my name is Sandra Andraca. I'm part of the FACS community team, and this event is co-organized by the World Bank and the UNDP FACS community under the G7 World Bank-led Food Systems, Land Use and Restoration Impact Program, FOLUR IP. And there are some colleagues also from the FACS community joining us today. Philippe, who is also the FOLUR community moderator, Alejandra, she's supporting us today, and Lucia also is a member of our comms team. And yeah, I see that people are joining. Welcome everybody, and over to you, Claire.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandra, and welcome to everyone. We're delighted that you could join us for this exciting session today. This is our first storytelling workshop, kindly hosted by the FACS community, and it's specifically designed for the country projects. So all of you who are the representatives of the 27 country projects across the world. My name is Claire Murphy-McGreevy. I'm the communications lead for the FOLUR Impact Program on the global platform side. Just to give you a brief overview, we're really hoping to sort of accelerate the country project storytelling through this workshop and sort of open the door to facilitate country project stories from all of yourselves. Those will be posted on the FOLUR website and also cross-promoted across channels, such as social media channels and through our core partners, many of whom are on the call as well today. And we hope to give you a sort of introduction to the kind of tools in the toolkit to be able to tell your stories. But we're also very much here as a resource for you to help you tell those stories and ensure that we're sort of maximizing the great work that you're doing and emphasizing the impact of that. So please do reach out to us, myself, Julie, Simon Cooper, who's also leading this with us. If you wanted to discuss a potential story, we can help you find the angle. We can help you sort of create the most compelling narrative. And I just want to say I'm very happy that it looks like we have 11 different countries confirmed for this workshop. So extremely well done to the FACS UNDP team for getting this level of engagement, and we're delighted that you're here. So first, we'll have a sort of introduction from our funder, the Global Environment Facility, led by Laura McInnes, who is our Senior Communications Officer and Deputy Head of Communications. And then we'll move straight into some interactive sessions with Simon Cooper of UNDP and Julie Mullins of FOLUR. They are both ex-journalists and they're extremely experienced communications professionals, so we're really privileged and proud to have them with us today. I would just say, please consider this a fully interactive session. Feel free to interrupt us, ask questions. We will not at all take that personally. We love that kind of interactivity. And Felipe and Sandra will tell you more about this, but all the materials will be available on the FACS community following this workshop. And we also encourage you to join the FACS community and consider this your sort of space to be able to share information and stories about your country project. So with that, I will just say welcome, and we're delighted to get started. And I believe it's over to Simon Cooper now. Thank you.
I think we're moving to Laura here.
Oh, yes.
First.
Sorry. Excuse me. Thank you.
That's great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the chance to be here. And I'm really looking forward to the workshop, actually. Storytelling is very close to my heart, and I think it's really at the center of what I'm about to share with you from the Jeff Communications point of view. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get my messages. Can we get the presentation up, and then we'll go through. Okay, we can go to the next slide here. The main thing I wanted to share is that communications it's a central part of our work, of the Jeff's work. We have heard from our CEO that communications is a strategic function that's key to making sure that all the projects that we fund, all the programs that we fund, including FOLUR, have impact and resonance and can be sustained. We're working to raise awareness about the work and the impacts, for an important reason, which is to make sure that they can continue and continue to have the impacts that we'd like to see. Without good communications, we can't have a strong replenishment. Is something that our CEO has been saying quite a lot. Our replenishment cycle is happening right now. So for us, communications is very much related to, the core of the operations and the funding for that. My goal here is to give you some of the tools that we have been sharing across our network in order to ensure that we can work in a coordinated way towards joint goals. I'm very happy to answer questions you have, and then I'm also very happy to get into the storytelling piece. So maybe we can go to the next slide. Okay. We have a policy on communication and visibility that the Jeff Council approved about 2 years ago. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to have a QR code with a link to that, and we'll also share it with you directly. This policy tries to make very clear what recipients of Jeff funding need to do about mentioning or acknowledging the Jeff funding contribution, guidance on our logo use, how to coordinate with the Jeff Communications team and the possibilities with that. So, I don't want to get into that right now, but I would invite you to become familiar with it, to review it, and to come with us if you have any questions. So I think we can go to the next slide there. Partnerships, yeah. So our overall approach to communications from the Jeff is really driven through the idea of partnership and partnership engagement. This idea we're stronger together, that really Jeff funding is contributing to a lot of very positive things, which can seem small alone, but together it's the cumulative impact that we're trying to tell as a story for all of our audiences, including and particularly donors at this time. And so, we're just really been focused on finding ways to work together. We work together with communicators from agencies. We are building networks of communicators on individual projects and programs, and also kind of at the country level and governments too. So there's lots of efforts that are happening related to that and opportunities. We can continue the next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the tools and channels that the Jeff uses. Some of them will be familiar to you. The main thing I want you to know is that our channels are your channels. If you have stories that are of interest, we absolutely are happy to publish them in our newsletter, which goes to 70,000 people. On our website, we have a blog site. We have lots of opportunities around events. So, Claire and I are in contact a lot, and, we're very interested in your stories. So just know that we're an additional amplification, and all these channels are really your channels as well. Yeah, you can go to the next thing. Okay, perfect. So this is a QR code that we'll share with you separately. I'm also going to make sure you receive these documents directly after this workshop, but we have like a single page document describing the Jeff and its work to help you do the same thing. We have a primer which has all the context for me and my colleagues and a sense of how do you contribute to those channels that I showed you, and a link to the policy on communication and visibility. So the main goal is to make it easy for us to work together, very supportive of your work, very eager to sort of support this storytelling and give it increased audiences. I will put into the chat a few examples of stories that I think have been very resonant. I think the only thing I would say, just as we kick off, is that we're really keen on stories about people. The global environmental benefits are our mandate, but really the people and the communities who are affected by programs like yours are really what makes these stories memorable. I have a few examples that are from a few different sectors, but I think hopefully will give you a bit of a sense of that from what we have found most successful. So I'm happy to answer questions separately or later, but I think that's what I wanted to share for now. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Laura. That's a great intro to my section. The stories that you're proud of is what we're going to be talking about now. So as well as putting them in the chat, Laura, fill them into the Menti that we're about to put up on the screen. So my question to you is, how can we get more stories out there? And part of that is getting the beginning of the conveyor belt, if you like, running faster. So I'm slightly insulted that Claire described Julie and I as ex-journalists. I don't think you're ever an ex-journalist. You're always looking at stories and thinking, well, that's interesting. How can I get that out there? And that's the way I look at it as well. So what's the best story you've ever produced is what we're asking now. If you're in comms and working actively in our programs, then fine, you'll have your best story at the back of your head. If you're not actually working in comms and you're at the beginning of that conveyor belt, just think about the story you'd wish you'd produced. What was it that you thought you should have produced? And we're going to do this on Mentimeter, and I'm sure we're all used to how that works, but here comes the QR code. So point your camera of your phone at the QR code, or you can use your laptop to go to menti.com and enter that code 6834 5838. And if this disappears off the screen, you'll find it in the chat. So the question is, what's the best story you've ever produced or wish you had produced? Put that into Menti. It's the format where you're essentially writing a WhatsApp message or a text message, just a brief panel, which you put the details of the story into, and they'll start floating up the screen for us, and we'll have a look and see what sort of stories people are proud of. One that I'm particularly proud of, which actually is a proof of concept of what Laura was talking about, is that Jeff is somewhere that you can send your stories and they're well received. In the summer of this year, I interviewed one of Laura's colleagues, Mohammed Bakar, on video. He was talking about his view of power in food systems and how important it is to deal with that rather than just try and sweep it under the carpet. And we did a video. I edited it and sent it to Laura and her colleagues saying, here's something you might be interested in. And lo and behold, it appeared in the Jeff newsletter. So all of a sudden I had 70,000 extra viewers that I didn't know I was going to have. So that really is a very good receiving point for the stories that we come up with. So let's look at the stories that people are proud of that are coming up on the screen now. Story about a UN water initiative, how reforms are benefiting the smallholder farmers of Malawi. Really, really good stories coming up, particularly that one in the center of the screen, because you've got the place. Anybody who's in Malawi will be interested in reading about that. And you've got the smallholder farmers. So anybody globally who's a smallholder farmer will be interested in looking at that as well. And everybody drinks water, of course. So everybody interested in the UN water story. So do fill in the text box as it comes up on the screen. Sandra, can you translate the third one for me? My Spanish isn't good enough to do that.
Sure, sure. El trabajo de las comunidades locales y los pueblos por el medio ambiente is the work of local communities and the people from the environment.
Okay, great. Well, that's another. I think the thing that we're all saying, and Laura said this as well, and Claire, is that you need to have people in your stories. It's very easy in the world in which we live of products and deliverables and all those things, just to be operating at that level of theoretical involvement. But as soon as you get a human being there, and I always work the story, the text of the story, to be the same sort of thing as I look for in photographs. So if I'm going to put a photograph in a story, and I'm working in the food systems part of the work we do, it has to have a human being in it because human beings are part of food systems. It has to have a crop. So you're talking about growing something. What is it they're growing? And it has to have the landscape that they're living in. So that could be a market, it could be a retail store, but certainly it has to have the context in which they're living. And those are the three, I think, the key things. So Peru produced a short video showcasing experiences, threats, challenges of diversity of the environmental defenders. So again, human beings very important to the stories that we're telling, particularly those who are out there doing things that the rest of us might not be brave enough to do. And FOLUR learning from other country projects through dialogue. So we've got one at the bottom of the screen there. We just need to get rid of the QR code. That's it. In Costa Rica, transformation of polluted areas to a community park. In the Philippines, female e-waste workers' lives. Senegal, an energy efficiency project that brought ice cream to a village for the first time. Now, happy kids are excellent in photographs. You can just imagine what those photographs would have been like when the Senegalese went out to get their ice cream there. And also people who we walk past and may not particularly look at, the e-waste workers who are in the Philippines. Very important part of the recycling that we want to see happening, and highlighting them, highlighting people who otherwise wouldn't have a voice, is a key part of the journalism that we operate. Well, thank you for coming up with those ideas. What we're going to do in about 10 minutes' time is we're going to zoom in with one of our guests and talk about a story that she's particularly proud of, how it came about, how she developed it, where it went to in the outside world. But I'll hand over to Julie now, who's going to give us some of the theory behind what makes a good story. So Julie, over to you.
Hi, thanks very much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you to UNDP for organizing this with us, and to Jeff, to Laura for participating as well, and of course, everyone who joined. So I'm going to talk about the inverted pyramid, and we have a slide for this. If that can be shared, that would be great, please. Thank you. So, so this really is about story structure as opposed to content specifically, as we were just discussing. So newspapers and newswire services use this formulaic hard news story style to distill the most important part of a piece of information they're trying to share. The structure is used for news advisories, also used for news advisories, press releases, or quick stories. Instead of holding the big findings of a given project achievement, study, or report until the end, we put it right up front. So in academic writing and in journal articles, often the key findings are summarized in the conclusion. But in this type of news story, you invert that. So it should start with the information that will have the biggest impact. This might be measured by what will affect the most people. It takes the form, or what has had the biggest impact on most people in the case of project stories. So it takes the form of this inverted pyramid, which is shown on the slide. And the most important facts are put at the beginning, otherwise known as the top of the story. And they answer the who, what, where, why, when, sometimes known as the W5, and how. Supporting information follows. You develop further details in the nut graph or billboard paragraph. For example, you would perhaps be talking about how your project reached, 10,000 people and changed their lives. And then you would begin to start to say how this happened in the next paragraph. And then you often support that with a quote. You might use a quote from a project leader, for example, or a person who was working in the field, to say, either how it supported these people or give some other example type of quote. And it supports the declaration that's made in the lead and the nut graph of the story. So the next sentences explain the so what. They explain why the news is important. They expand on the impact and the how. The structure, which places the need to know, what's referred to as need to know, information at the top, as shown in the slide, allows readers to easily understand the story. Then, if there's room, the story should be between, say, 450 and 800 words. You can add more background information and possibly another quote, maybe from a different person. This is the nice to know part of the story. As more information is added, the story typically continues to widen out, so there's no need to add a conclusion. The inverted pyramid is a quick method of getting the story told and helps the reader to absorb it quickly, but sometimes a topic might be more suited to a feature, Q&A, or a profile treatment. The concept of the inverted pyramid can still be the basis for this, but for a feature, for example, you might use a softer lead, as it's referred to, perhaps, as people have been discussing here, a person. You might focus in on a specific farmer, for example, who has had years of difficulty, but now is benefiting from new innovations in the field. So you might try to narrow in on his or her story and begin it with a bit of a human touch, as Laura was talking about earlier too. So in general, when you're writing your stories, always look for ways to help a reader. Imagine you're explaining the story to a friend or relative who doesn't know anything about your work. Don't assume a reader or colleague understands what you're writing about, and it's important to eliminate jargon, including unexplained acronyms. And so, I mean, a lot more can be said on that. So, I'm happy to answer any questions or to, either during this session or by email or a call later. Anything that is written can go onto the FOLUR.org news channel. And then facts will often either run the story as well, or first or second. And sometimes we can also cross-publish onto GLF. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Fascinating. And I really like that inverted pyramid argument because, of course, you are getting the most important stuff there out first. And I think what we have to recognize now, wherever we're working, is the attention span of the audience is reducing all the time. Thank you, social media. And if you don't get the interesting point in the first couple of sentences, we do a lot of writing for LinkedIn. And if you look at a LinkedIn post, just next time you open your LinkedIn page, there's about 50 words that are there before LinkedIn automatically inserts more, and you have to click on that word more in order to read the rest of it. And if you look at the click-through rates, it really is important to get the 50 words there at the beginning to be really impactful. And sad to say, I said you never stop being a journalist. I actually collect opening lines on my phone. So I'll just read you one, which is about migration. This comes from a book called Nomad Century, and it's written by a woman called Gaia Vince. And this is a line which, in the point that Julie made, that academic would have left at the end of their report because it's sort of the conclusion of all the data they're coming up with. But Gaia, who actually is a radio presenter as well, which is probably where she gets this focus and the first few words from, she decided to put this at the beginning. A great upheaval is coming. It will change us and our planet. In the global south, extreme climate change will push vast numbers of people from their homes, with large regions becoming uninhabitable. In the planet's more comfortable north, economies will struggle to survive the demographic changes with massive workforce shortages and an impoverished elderly population. Now, that would be the ending of a different sort of story, but the way she's written is to put it first. And I think that's the point I take from Julie's inverted pyramid, is you've got to get the thing that will really grab the audience by the throat, put it in the first few words of what you're saying. So thank you, Julie. I'm going to go on now and talk to one of our participants about a story that she's particularly proud of. And Patty Christensen is my interviewee here, and she's been my interviewee in the past. So good to talk to you again, Patty. What we wanted to do was to go through really expanding on what we did in the earlier section where we had the stories coming up on Menti, and just talk about one particular story and maybe dissect it a bit and see what it was that made it special and how it impacted on the audience. So what story are you going to select for us, Patty? What are you going to come up with?
I think I will highlight one of the more recent ones that we did that actually Julie kind of inspired me on. I was asking her, I said, how do we pull out success stories to inspire people? Because Simon, I think one of the things we are trying to do with the project teams that are struggling on the ground, they're doing the real hard work, and they are having successes. And so the learning from each other, I think, is the specific examples that they take from each other and can learn from and say, oh, I could try that, right? That's inspiring to me that that's working in another similar project, that kind of thing. And we were trying to inspire sort of new gender responsive activities in the projects for the project teams to be thinking about what can they do to really reach women and youths and others that are traditionally less empowered. What real specific things. And so we were looking around and we found ourselves looking past FOLUR projects and realized that we can also tell stories from non-FOLUR that absolutely are applicable for FOLUR. Okay, so that's why we called it Learning from Success. We didn't call it Learning from FOLUR Success. And we told a story about a Mexico project, a forest landscape project in Mexico that is not only empowering women, but they are using a novel approach called the W+ Women's Empowerment Standard to tell the story and measure how women are being empowered, how much they're being empowered, and the W+ credits can actually be generated and sold in the marketplace, just like carbon credits are. And so this is a really innovative, cutting edge thing that is empowering project teams themselves by just thinking about what activities are we doing that are empowering women? How are we going to measure them? How are we going to tell the story of why that is so powerful and impactful? So that was one, and sitting down with the project team, we had all the different various documents that where they were reporting, and those were word heavy and too long. And so we tried to do the inverted pyramid. Again, Julie was in the background making sure we did this. Flip it on its edge and say, the why does this matter? What's the impact? And then getting down more into the enough detail that another project team could say, oh, that's what's involved to do this, but not all the details. They would still have to go a little further if they're going to do it. But now they have the information, where to go to get more information. And ideally, they're just energized and, sort of convinced, if you will, that they could maybe do this. So that's, to me, one of the powers of storytelling, is to inspire people that they can try these innovative, scary things sometimes. It's not easy.
Who did you talk to then? Who were the people who were in the story when it came out?
Yeah, so the project team members themselves, the people that did the training of the method on the ground. Yeah, so from various angles. That's the other thing, I guess, is a nice thing to get in, because people have different experiences, right? Because they're coming from different angles depending on what their role is.
And what was the conclusion? Was there a call to action at the end of the story that got people to do something?
Good question. I hope we succeeded in that. Yeah, I hope we succeeded in inspiring people that if they want to know more. So the India team, for example, in FOLUR, saw this and said, yes, we want to learn more. Let's set up a meeting. So we're setting up a meeting with them to talk specifically in their context. And I hope that kind of snowballs and other project teams will do the same.
Because what you were doing there, the reason I asked that question is you knew why you wanted to get the story out there, because you wanted other people, other countries to follow that lead that had been established. And that's the question I often ask at the beginning of stories when people come to me and say, I'd like to do something about this, is, okay, who's the audience? And what do you want them to think when you've finished? Two very simple questions,
Yes.
and you can break it down into all the chunks that are in the inverted pyramid slide. But really, that's the basic question. If you don't know who you're talking to, you ought to think about that. And if you don't know what you want them to think at the end, again, you should talk about that. And the great thing you identified, you may not have thought about it through quite this filter, but you've also got to think, okay, who's the audience and how many of them are out there for the topic I'm talking about? So you had women's empowerment, that's 50% of the population. All of a sudden, so you've got a really big group of people that you're talking to. Hopefully men will read it as well and will take action in the right way. But you've got people who are really going to be drawn into that. What would you take into the next story that you might run? What have you learned from what you did with the women's empowerment story? I mean, I think the credits idea is really fascinating. There's an element in there which I hadn't heard of before. Although I've heard of this story, but if you hadn't put the story out, I wouldn't have would have known about that. What are the learnings that you give to all the people who are on this session now?
I guess that voice from the ground, if you will. So the woman that was empowered because she went to a leadership training and then she used the leadership training to do X, Y, and Z to change her practices, whatever. To allow that to come out very powerfully at the beginning. And often when we interview project teams, they will give you a lot of background and a lot of information. This is all the things we're doing. And I think what we can help do is pull out, I call them the gems, the lessons, the powerful things. And yes, you can, again, at the end, you can put that background information. But it's quite a skill to do that and pull out the gems and recognize them and really highlight them to capture people's imagination.
Yeah, I think you've obviously got the skill of listening really carefully to what they're saying. So sometimes, and we've all seen this on broadcast interviews, the interviewer isn't really listening to what the interviewee is saying. They've just got their list of questions, they'll ask the question, the answer comes out, and embedded in the middle of the answer will be the gem that you're talking about. But because the interviewer isn't listening, they just carry on with the next question that's on their list. So deep listening is something that we really need. Patty, thank you very much for being our first interviewee in this process. It's great to hear
Well,
from you.
thank you. And I really look forward to hearing more and then in this session and the other ones and in feedback later on, what some of the project team members what gems are you getting from us?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Spot the gems as they come past. Thanks, Patty, very much.
Okay, thank you.
So what Patty was talking about there as well was Julie talked about the angle of the story, but also it's the feeling, the nature of the story. And Patty said they went in on the positive and asked positively what could be transferred to other countries, what are the positive angles of the story that could go elsewhere. And I think that's important in the particular work that we do, where we're trying to encourage people to adopt new ways of developing their particular techniques. And often when you look at the media that we consume as listeners and viewers of television and readers of newspapers, a lot of those stories are very negative. Now, that's partly, you can have all sorts of discussions about why they're negative, but partly they're trying to sell newspapers, they're trying to get people to tune into their TV channel, and they're trying to get people to listen to the radio. And so those arresting negative stories, like the bad weather that's hitting the Caribbean at the moment, those will draw people in. But in our case, we don't have to do that. We've got a community of audience with us that are interested in what we're doing. And so if you go in on the positive side, that's both a better story as far as the audience is concerned, because they're getting things they can pick up and use. And it's also something which is better for the interviewees. So sometimes if you're a communications professional and you're trying to get somebody to do an interviewee, to be an interviewee in your story, they'll be afraid of what you're trying to do with them because they've seen people being torn apart on television in chat shows. Well, that's not what we're doing. We're not in that deal. We're there to share information and we're collaborating with our interviewees to make that happen. So let's go on to some of the examples of how you can do this. Let's go on to a couple of videos, because one thing that is very, very powerful is video content. And people often say to me, well, I can't do videos. Well, most people I talk to have one of these, and you can do video on these very effectively nowadays. And I'll give you a couple of examples now where that was exactly what was done. So Philippe, I think you've got the videos ready. Let's start off with one. I'll let it play for a bit and then I'll explain to you what it's about.
Mi nombre es Gerardo Grajales, vivo aquí en la comunidad de La Marea, tengo 60 años de ser agricultor. Donde estamos, este es mi territorio, tiene más de 80 hectáreas, entre ellas hay 12 ya son utilizables, lo demás todos son bosque primario y le hemos conservado viendo la esperanza siempre de conservar lo que es la naturaleza.
Nuestra forma de la agricultura es sostenible porque nosotros trabajamos 1 hectárea este año. Ya este año, para el próximo año, ya no lo vamos a hacer aquí, no lo vamos a seguir devastando al lado, sino lo hacemos en otra parte, esto se regenera. En un futuro, si podemos sembrar plátano, podemos sembrar el ñame, la yuca, ya nos provee la alimentación. Esa es la forma de trabajar lo que es la tierra, el bosque y todo eso. Pero el otro campesino, el que no es indígena...
We'll leave it there. So that's a 2.5-minute video, actually, that goes all the way through. And that was filmed by my colleague Maria using a combination of an iPhone and an ordinary digital SLR camera, as we will often take when we go on holiday. So not a professional video camera that you carry around on your shoulder, just a big enough SD card within a conventional camera to get all of that material there. Edited on a combination of free software and the Premiere Plus software that many of us have access to as part of our corporate accounts. And she just decided she wanted to tell the story of those indigenous people who are in the Darien Gap, just north of Panama, and it came out very effectively. And in fact, there are about 4 different versions of that, the stories that came out of that filming trip. And they're very effective at talking about how Indigenous people are very sustainable in the way that they work with their land. So don't be afraid of not having the equipment. Don't be afraid of not being able to edit it, because that's actually very easy in the way that editing software works now. I'm so old, you used to have to do it on videotape and press buttons and have stopwatches and all sorts of things. And now it's really easy. And the key thing is the undo button. If you make a mistake, just press undo, you get back to where you were before and try again. So let's look at one more video format, and again we'll let it play and then I'll explain it to you afterwards. This is just 1 minute long, so we'll let it run all the way through.
Hello, I'm Thomas Legrand from UNDP and the Conscious Food Systems Alliance, here in Addis Ababa for the UN Food Systems Summit +4 StockTech. Bhutan's Minister of Agriculture and Livestock announced that his country will be hosting the first global Conscious Food System Summit in 2026. This will be a unique opportunity to position our agenda in the global conversation on food system. We think it's much needed to support real and deep food systems transformation. In this event, I've particularly enjoyed hearing the perspectives of Indigenous people and local communities, highlighting the sacredness of food and the importance of cultural values and Indigenous worldviews. It has been great also to be part of an event led by the youth and highlighting the role of arts and creativity in food systems transformation. We'll be building on the StockTech results and the connection made here to prepare for a global Conscious Food Systems Summit in Bhutan in 2026.
So that's what we call a short, obviously describing its length. Some people say, I can't really produce video stories because I'm a bit shy of interviewing somebody else, or I can't find people that want to be interviewed. But of course, that's just a single person piece to camera. So Thomas just got one of his colleagues to hold the camera far enough away, and he'd prepared the script in his head, and he ran it out. The only piece of technology you would have noticed is the lapel microphone that he had clipped to him. So if you do try filming things in noisy locations with an iPhone, the problem is that the microphones on the end here pick up all the noise you don't want. But if you can get one of those microphones, they cost about $20 or $30. They connect to your phone and you get just the voice of the person speaking. So I guess the point I'm making to you is just be brave. Just go out there and try recording stuff. It's only digits. If it doesn't work properly, you can try again. If it doesn't work at all, then all you've done is used up a bit of memory in your phone. But do try to get the video working, because compared to text, if in tests, psychological tests that have been done of how people consume media, about 70% of the message gets through on the pictures and 30% gets through on the text. So however hard you work on getting the text right, the pictures, and particularly moving pictures, will be really effective at getting the message across. So to help you do that, if we just put the slide up now, we've got some guidelines which have been produced actually by our colleague Lucia, who's on this call, who did the editing on some of those videos. So guidelines for video production, and another one on video recording on location, talking particularly about what you should be doing if you're not in an office situation or a studio situation. Those are available. We'll send them out to you when this session's over. But there are many pieces of advice like that we can give you if you want to step over the line into making your first video. It's a great thing to do, and it's very effective. And the final thing to say is that if you're using LinkedIn or another social media, it really triggers the algorithm, having video content, to distribute it to other people. So you broaden your audience as soon as you put video in. So that's it from me. I'm going to conclude now and hand back. Lucia, hello. So Lucia has actually got a few words to say about those documents. Just give us a quick summary of the contents that you put in there.
Simon, thank you so much. Yeah, we collaboratively did the job of developing these guidelines to record when we have different events. For example, last week we had 2 side events at the CFS 53 conference, and we actually produced one of the videos, and we are trying to edit it right now. as Simon said, it's really easy. You only have to have, one iPhone and the microphone, and it's, really easy. You have to present yourself. You can have trigger questions. One of the tips that we always said to our people who we work with is like just to have like an institutional banner on the background, or something that identifies the event that we are participating in, and just present yourself and say where you are, what's the objective of our presence in the conference. And it's very easy. It takes less than a minute, because of course, if you want to catch the people's attention right now, as Simon said, it's really difficult. And as the shorter the video, the better. So you have to be really concise. You have to try to empathize with the audience. Like Julie said, try not to be so technical in the vocabulary. And yeah, the editing is really easy afterwards. And as Simon said, videos have a lot of engagement on LinkedIn and YouTube. So these short videos help a lot. So yeah, you're really welcome to do it. And if you have any doubts, we're here to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucia. I'll hand back to Claire now, and we're going to have a Q&A session. Claire, back to you.
Thank you. Great. So we now will open it up to a quick Q&A. And I think for those who are Spanish speakers, if you want to post in Spanish in the chat, then Sandra and our colleagues online will kindly translate that for us. So the floor is open for any questions. Please go ahead. Do not be shy. Okay, do we have any hands raised, Sandra? Do you see anything that I might be missing?
I don't see any hands. I have a question.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to say in Spanish, if this is okay.
Of course.
Muchas gracias por las presentaciones. Y creo que para las personas que no somos comunicadoras o no somos periodistas, siempre nos da un poco de miedo. Nos da un poco de miedo contar historias, ¿no? No sentimos que somos profesionales en ese tema. Entonces, se han comentado varias recomendaciones, pero tal vez me gustaría escuchar de parte de Julie o de Simon alguna recomendación para animarnos a las personas que no somos profesionales a contar una historia. No sé, ¿por dónde podemos empezar? Algo así como sencillo, algo básico para romper un poco ese hielo. Gracias.
You want to go first, Julie, or shall I?
Sorry. Well, I didn't get a translation of that, and I'm sorry, my Spanish isn't good enough to capture that question.
I'm sorry. I was saying, Julie, that for the people who are not professional or journalists, this is my case, if you have any recommendation for us for the common people, how to feel incentivized to storytelling, to start a story. What is a simple recommendation for that? But maybe over to you, Simon, and then Julie, if you want to add something.
Yeah, let Julie think about that, because I've been thinking about it since I heard the translation. I would say it's the pleasure of seeing the story out there is what drives me. And as we heard from Patty, the pleasure of seeing other people adopting the thing you were talking about in your story. So it's that end result, I think, that really has to drive you. You make you think, okay, well, I'd like my work to be better known. I'd like my work to be more widespread. And it's that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it really fall? So getting the message out there is part of everybody's work, really, to make sure that what we're doing gets replicated, gets scaled up in as many contexts as possible. Judy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. If it's, I mean, the fantastic thing about storytelling from my perspective is, as Simon said, it does, create a record of what activities have occurred, how else will people know in 10 years what you achieved if it's not in a story, basically. And I'm constantly looking back at old stories I've written to remind myself, like, oh yeah, I remember I did something on this, or, and it's very useful to have that record. And also, with the stories, these kind of short type news type stories, they can be folded into other projects you're working on. So if you need to do an annual report, you can summarize, have a quick summary from that story you've already done. Or if you want to put out, like with Patty, we've done a few of these pieces, like the story of success that we shared in the chat. But then also we've done shorter news stories on those. So you can, they can go both ways. You can either use a longer piece and summarize it, which is very useful for then sharing on social media, with a link to the longer version. Or you can, start with a story and then expand it into something broader or use it elsewhere.
Okay, Claire, I think it's back to
Yeah.
you for the final session.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else want to ask any further questions? Okay. So please feel free to reach out to us if anything should occur to you afterwards. Please engage with the FACS community, and I'll just let Felipe give a brief overview of the FACS community in the time we have remaining. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, so let me just share my screen here. So basically, the FACS community is the bigger community on which the FOLUR community of practice is anchored. Many of you are already familiar with the space. So if you have a FACS community account, you just go on programs, you're going to get access to your FOLUR community there. What we did is we created a space on that community for that dialogue on storytelling to keep going. This is not a one-off. This is the beginning of a conversation between the global partners and the country projects on how can we best showcase your stories and, take the hidden gems of your country projects and turn them into stories for the broader public. So I have created a space where we can gather your inputs on this and where we can initiate a conversation with everybody that shared with us today and beyond. So you can find that space on your FOLUR community. If you go on events, you're going to have a page called Country Project Storytelling 2025. By clicking on this, you will land on a page where there is a forum dedicated to each of the sessions we're holding. As you know, we are going to have one for Africa and Europe and one for Asia and the Pacific as well. On that space, you will be able, by going on the forums, to let us know of anything you would like to share, any story, any elements that you believe would benefit from some coverage there. And then us from the global platform are going to be monitoring that, and we're going to be keeping that conversation alive to make the most out of your stories. On that same space, you'll be able to access as well the slides. So, that's the one pager about how to best communicate the story. That's Julie's inverted pyramid and so on and so forth. Everything's going to be accessible in that space. And when we are done with that session, the recording is going to be accessible directly here as well. So if you need to retake any of the learnings from today, you can do it directly in the community. So with that, I think I'll hand it over back to you, Claire, for the closing words. Over.
Thank you. And do we have time, Sandra, for the really quick Menti question? Is that okay? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. If you want to do it, we can do it. Yeah, sure. It's
Okay.
2 minutes, 1
Yeah.
minute. Okay,
Okay, let's go for it.
let's do it. This is the question.
Right.
Okay.
And we are sharing the code in the chat box too.
Yeah, and just give me a second. I will, now that everybody's had the time to see the question, I'll put them in for everybody. There you go.
Great. So I'm afraid the one about ice cream and happy kids is me, because that was my main takeaway. That really sparked my interest. We hear be positive. Everyone is a journalist. It is an attitude. Focus on people's stories. Be positive to inspire. It's important to write or make videos about projects. Do not be afraid to write a story. So I think that's really positive feedback for us, that that this is what came across. And we do sometimes live in a rather scary world, so I'm very happy that we are able to tell some positive stories. Communicate. Would you mind translating that one, Sandra? Communicating something
Yeah,
in Spanish.
communicate the actions is important, and communicate is not as difficult as we believe.
Great. That's a wonderful takeaway. So with that, we are at the hour, and I just want to thank everyone for joining. And we were just so pleased to have this, and this is really just the beginning. We will be our foot on the gas pedal, as we say in the US. We're accelerating our efforts around Country Project storytelling over the next several months and through to the end of the impact program, really. So we look forward to engaging with all of you, and we thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.